Now I have to think about what I've been thinking about. My name is Miki Ratsula. My pronouns are they, them. And something I've been thinking about a lot lately is, well, so many things that it's kind of actually, you know what? Something I've been thinking about a lot lately is actually Fallout 4 because I watched the show and I was like, so it looks like a cool video game, and so I've been like playing it lately. And I find myself like being like, I want to go play it right now and whatever. And that feels very embarrassing to me to like answer with like a video game, but I feel like it's just true. I've been really into it lately.
So I have recently, did you ever play Age of Empires growing up?
No.
It was like a very like late 90s, early 2000s. Like you build a civilization and you have like villagers gathering
Okay. I
resources and
really
like
like
build
that style.
armies. Exactly.
Yeah. I like that
So
type of game.
I was like not really allowed to play video games growing up. I was allowed like by the time I was, I don't know, begged my mother, it became like an agreement that I could do Age of Empires, but only for an hour a week. It was like my like
Okay. Okay.
special hour. And then I completely forgot about it and haven't thought about it in like 15 years. And like this winter, I think it was in January, one night,
Hmm.
I don't know what happened, but it just hit me. And I was like, I really want to play Age of Empires. And it didn't exist for Mac, but there's so many people who loved it from that age that they created this like open source
I need
game
to
called
like
Zero
look at it now.
AD. Yeah, Zero AD. And I downloaded it and I thought I would like binge it for like a night or two and like get that like
Yeah.
nostalgic child thing out of my system. We're in May now. I'm in deep. I play many times a week. I have such a good time with it. I too feel weirdly about it. I have like a weird guilt thing of like, I shouldn't play video games. And my wife
Yeah.
is like really great and positive and affirming on the other side of like, this is fantastic. Like, shut your brain down. Take some, like, you don't
Yeah.
need to be productive. So, anyways, I find it funny that we both have gone through like a little video game renaissance in our life.
I feel like I've always loved, I mean like this I feel like this is just like a generic trans experience, but I've always loved video games my whole life, but like I really catered to the ones that I got to like customize a person because I think I got to the man. I always played as like male characters and like always like to make them look a certain way, and that was like always like, especially like, I mean, I also grew up playing sports, so I also have always loved sports video games, but my favorite part of them was to make a player, and then I would like
Mm,
live through that fantasy of I'm playing as this player that I made and he looks great and he's like also playing whatever sport I'm playing. So I
it
think that's
makes
part of
so
it.
much
Like
sense. And I've never thought about that. And I now feel
yeah,
embarrassed that I've never thought about that.
yeah, so like Fallout, I was like, when I saw that it's like an open world game, which I also like, I was like, oh cool, so I get to like character or like make this character's face and then like explore a world, like I'm in, and that's what I've been doing when I have like downtime. Usually, like the hour before my wife comes home, I've like done everything I need to do. I'm like, okay, I'll play a little bit till she comes home. But yeah, embarrassingly enough, that's what I've been thinking about because I.
Let's rebrand it. Not embarrassingly enough. Lovely enough. You are taking an hour for yourself before your wife comes home.
It's
Um,
true. It's true.
Speaking of characters and men and being seen how we want to be in the world. When I was thinking about like questions to ask you, one of the things that I wanted to
Uh
talk
huh.
about is like, I love how you just take every opportunity to be topless. It's just fantastic. I like you're taking it to like a whole new spiritual, joyful level. So I don't know, just like tell me about that.
So it's so funny because I really didn't think this was gonna be me. So like I've always been like a chubby person my whole life. I still am. It's always been like a part of like my identity, and I always like, and I played soccer growing up, so I also was always like the biggest person on my team. What and like I was always like just I never felt good in my body, obviously for like gender reasons, but I think outside of that as well, I just like never liked to show my arms. I never liked to show my legs. Like, I just didn't feel like anyone wanted to look at me. So I think that like really carried on even to when I got top surgery. I told myself like I really just want top surgery so I can like have be flat when I wear a shirt. I only ever viewed top surgery as a flat thing. And I was like, I even thought for a while like, oh, when I go swimming, I'm not even gonna think about it yet because I was like, I don't want to be shirtless. I don't think I want to do that. And then there was something that happens when you get top surgery, at least for me, that like just gave me this entire new sense of confidence where I was like, oh, I was like, I feel really good. And like, I knew I wanted to be shirtless in like the comfort of my own home. Like, you know, like I had this fantasy of like going downstairs and making coffee for my wife shirtless. I'm still in my boxers, you know, like that. Those little moments were really exciting to me. But there was something like when I got top surgery, I remember taking my shirt off and like going outside and like letting the sun. I was like a day post, so I was like I had to be really quick about it. But I was like, that feeling was so surreal. I've always loved being outside as well. And to feel that on my chest, like just it shifted something in me where I was like, oh, why do I want to keep my shirt on? This feels great and I feel good about myself. So I didn't expect it. I honestly didn't plan for top surgery. It was never about being shirtless for me. And then I just like couldn't stop. I just felt so free, like literally, like physically, that weight off my chest, but also like feeling the sun on my skin, like the wind, everything. I just like I couldn't get enough of it. And um, it's funny because it took a while for me to get to the point of being shirtless on stage. That didn't really happen until this last tour with G Flip. I think I was just like so worried because I mean I'm like 3 years post op as of March, so like, it's still relatively new in my life and in my career, but um, on that tour, I don't know, I felt like I think I got in my head of that like rhetoric that trans people are like doing too much or shoving it down people's throats. I was really scared of that rhetoric.
Mm.
So I was like, I can't be shirtless on stage because they didn't ask for that. That's too much. Like I was telling myself that. And then I like for certain songs, certain lyrics, I would like flash it and I was like, that's enough. It's like kind of fun, kind of cheeky. But it never felt like satisfying in the way to me that I thought, but I was like, this is what I have to do. And then it wasn't until the day that my album came out, and it was like the same day as a New York show, and I was like, I'm in New York, we're playing a show, my album just came out. Like during this one song where I usually just flash it, I'm gonna take my shirt off. Like I've always wanted to do it, but I was always scared about it, and like I I've never wanted to admit to someone that like I really wanted to take my shirt off. And then I did it, and like the feeling I felt on stage and like seeing what it meant to certain people in the audience was like it was this like aha moment of why did I not do this earlier? Like why was I so afraid, or why did I have to like give myself a special occasion to do it? Like I just like really unlocked something for me. So then I started doing it, and now it's like every time I play Blue Balloons, it's like it's really cool. Like as the song goes on, like the bridge happens, like you see people pull their phones out, they know it's going to happen, that you see this moment start to, this moment has been like cemented in my career and in this song. And I'm, it's a while to get here because it's like a process. It's a whole new thing, but it's just so funny when I reflect back on before I even had top surgery. I really didn't plan to be shirtless. And then
Mm.
as you know, I can't stop. I'm like any chance I get, like,
And don't
but it's like,
stop. We love it.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like it's just so at the end of the day, like, people are gonna have a problem with it. And I've, had that in my own personal life, but also just like on social media. But it's like it's anytime I meet someone who's like, when I saw that, it changed something for me, or that made me realize that's what I want, or like whenever I've heard from someone that it made that connection and it meant something to someone, it's worth it every time, and that's ultimately like what I want to do with my career. But it is just so funny because I literally
It
it
wasn't
was
the
a surprise
plan.
to me as well. No,
Yeah.
it's not in the
Yeah.
plan at all.
I think something really important that you said that like maybe sounds simple on the surface, but we don't talk about it enough is just that
Hmm.
like there's so much conversation about how getting top surgery can make people feel good topless, but I think that the like implicit logic there is that like it's all reference to the chest. It's like breasts, not
Hmm.
breasts, chest feels good. And the fact that we can change one thing about our bodies and that can change how we see the entirety of our bodies, I think
Hmm.
is just true about human nature. Like
Yeah.
dysmorphia and dysphoria and like the ways in which we sometimes do or don't feel good about our bodies or see it or don't see it in the ways that we want. Like I know it's kind of this insight into like how there just like isn't really an objective truth there. We're just like constantly
Hmm.
constructing this image in ourselves, and it's a net changing one. Like I feel like this can happen with haircuts too. Like you can
Yeah.
like change one thing, and then suddenly like you just like feel entirely different about your body,
Right.
and that's just yeah. I think it's just a very
Like when
interesting
I
thing.
first cut my hair, like from like I think 6 years ago is when I like did the big chop, like cut my ponytail off, which is so wild to think that I ever had a ponytail. It feels like forever ago, but that alone, I was like, okay, like I feel like I can step in a room a little bit more, but still, I felt very small. But there was a little glimpse of like what top surgery was like for me, and top surgery was like a completely different world from just my haircut, and like um, it is so wild how like full body experience it really is, because like I mean, it just changed so many things in my life. I mean, the fact that like I could look in the mirror, And I was like, I liked what I saw. And I even like, I was working out beforehand because, like I said, I played soccer my whole life. I've always liked like being athletic. But even like after top surgery, like physically the change that happened because now I have like a different range of motion. Like I don't have my breast tissue in the way. Like I felt more of a connection to my body physically because also now I can actually like feel my chest muscles underneath and stuff like that. And it really is so much more than just such a surface level thing. And I think that's what is so frustrating too, dealing with people on social media talking about top surgery. It's like, I don't get it. Like, I have very prominent scars. That's another thing that also made me hesitant being shirtless on stage, is like, it's very visible, but I have something done to my chest. But even the way people speak about it, like, oh, you just like chop your boobs off and like you mutilate yourself or whatever words they want to use, and not realizing how like deeply personal it is as well. And they'll never understand because they don't care to understand. But it's a wild experience, and it's sometimes I wish I could like go back and like relive that first change within myself again because it was really like brought me to myself. I know that's not the
Mhm.
experience for everyone, but for me it really was.
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, speaking of stages, I want to pivot a little bit and talk about your music. I was re-listening to some of your songs yesterday and
Mm-hmm.
reading some of the lyrics, and one of the things that I was really struck by, I wanted to like get your take on, um, was how you use the word unconditional. Like normally when we use unconditional, like qualify something, you know, like we say unconditional love and
Uh-huh.
we know what that means, but just use it without qualifying it. And I thought that that was such an interesting move, and I just wanted to hear your take on like the thinking behind that.
So it's so funny because I was literally just making TikToks to that song. Like that's also partly why I was late because I was like so. Anyways, that song, yeah, Unconditional. I knew that I wanted to write it like when it was. I think the last song that I wrote on the album, and I had written the whole album. Like it was all there. It was all like really coming together. But I felt I was like, there's one song missing. I was like, when was I writing this? Like early last year. I was like, I'm about to get married this summer. Like I need to have some sort of love song. Like there's something like happy that needs to happen in this album. You know, something that's like of significance, but also like not. You know. Anyways, and I just was really reflecting on a lot of relationships in my life, which is what this album is doing, and just realizing how many people in my life would come to me with like, yeah, my love for you is unconditional, but then you realize that they're just saying that because then something changes and all of a sudden it becomes conditional love. Like it's like there actually were conditions the whole time, you just didn't tell me about it, or you don't really understand what unconditional love means. And it was realizing like my wife is quite literally her and like my brother, but I've written so many songs about my brother, but it's obviously different, but like really like when my life, like who has truly loved me unconditionally without conditions has been my wife. And I've had so many relationships where it was conditional even when they said it wasn't. I think that's where like it that's came into that, like where we were just using that word because yeah, it's like people have shown said unconditional, but meanwhile I feel like they had like their hands crossed behind or their fingers crossed behind their back type of thing. They're like, or they don't even realize that the conditions, like if conditions change, they don't like kind of follow that. I don't know, it just like just felt cool too. It was like just like a word that I feel like described very well both sides of what I was experiencing
Hmm.
across different relationships. And yeah.
Okay, cool. I imagine for a lot of people who watch this or listen to this, like you are really a role model, and I get this attribution of like you've made it, you know, like, and I get this too, which like makes me very uncomfortable because it certainly doesn't feel that way from the inside. So I guess
Mm-hmm.
like maybe can you speak to kind of the tension between your experience as a musician, like who you built this like really incredible career and you're doing awesome stuff and like giving credit to yourself for how far you've come, but that like at the same time, like having humility and understanding how far you are to
Mm-hmm.
go, like all the things that you still want to do. Like, I
Right.
don't know, how do you operate in that space, and like how does success feel to you right now?
It's funny because I was talking about this literally the other day with my tour manager, and who is one of my friends from childhood. So she's known me like my whole life, and she obviously went on the two tours with me and has seen me in this space. And it's funny that you say that because I'm very like I find it very endearing because I don't feel like I've gotten anywhere yet, which is very fun. But like not at the same time, like I'm not near where I want to be. But I think we were just talking about this. Like I think what I struggle with is there's this sense of like I struggle with because I'm a very vocal trans person. And it's very, very that I'm a trans person because like I have very prominent scars, right? Like something like that. I'm always shirtless. Like you cannot ignore the fact that I'm a trans person and I will not let you. So I'm not very easily consumable to people who don't want that. And that did there were people in my career and in my life who were aware of that and warned me about that and were like, well, if you want to be consumable, blah blah blah. I don't care about that because like that's ultimately not what matters to me. What matters to me is like when I'm in a room with like and I'm playing a show and I see like at my show in New York a couple weeks ago, like seeing people scream along the lyrics to like Elephant with me, like screaming like fuck being the elephant in this room needs something different, right? And you see like the just like the passion and joy, like how much that means, like that connection that we're having, that's what's important to me. And it was something that started happening like I didn't even start it. Like people started coming up to me on these tours and asking if they could take a photo with me, like shirtless, like we would both like with our shirts. And it just started happening. Like people wanted, they saw that I had done it and they were like, I want to do it with you. And then it just started. And there's just like after shows, I'll meet a handful of people and we take our topless shirts together or topless photos together. And it's those moments, like seeing what that means to that person is ultimately like what I do this for. Because if I always say like I want to be the artist that I needed growing up. Like I think I really would have saved myself from a lot of dark places and a lot of dark thoughts if I had seen someone like me. And so I really want to create that for other people. And so at the same time though, like I'm not willing to jeopardize or give up any part of myself for the comfort of other people who don't care. And that's like
Mm.
if that means it takes me a lot longer to get where I want to be, then that's fine. It's something I've accepted, but I'm not going to give up something that is so crucial to like my artistry and my activism and what I care about. And so it can be hard, like in this space. I feel like I was telling my TM the other day is I feel like I'm like there's this like a room that I see. There's all these windows and everything. And I'm just like right outside of it. And I'm just like knocking on the door, like, please let me in. And like I fit in this space. Like I can bring something to this space. And I'm just waiting for someone to open the door. And I see, like we're especially with like sapphic music really on the rise. It's so great. And I'm so excited that like queer music and sapphic music especially is like really becoming more popular. But it's mainly cis people, and or some of the people that are more gender queer, like maybe are a little bit more easier to consume by the general public, and which is not anyone else's fault. It's like the society's what we've placed on, but it can be frustrating because like I could do things differently. I could not be so vocal. I could not take my shirt off all the time. I could change those things, but then I'm not being authentic to myself or to my audience or to my career. So there's so much more I want to do. Like I really want. I'm not even close to where I want to be. It's a slow climb, and I'm aware of that. But it's to keep the authenticity. I'm not going to change that. But yeah, it is frustrating to like see just to see that like I don't know. People feel like there's like what is out there is all that there is for like queer music and queer artists, and I'm like, please, like just give me a chance. I'll show you that that's not just it. Or like I have a certain story to tell. Or um, so yeah, it's kind of twofold. Very when I look back on the last couple of years, or like even who I was 6 years ago, or whatever, like I have really come a long way. I've slowly built this fan base, and I'm so connected with them, and I'm so grateful for them, and I'm so grateful to just like be in the space that I am. And but there's so much more I want to do, and I feel I'm like just at the beginning, like this. I'm just starting. But yeah, it can be hard because it's easy to consume certain types of queer people, and people who are very visibly queer or very vocally queer are not as consumable to the world, and that sucks. And but that doesn't mean I don't know. Just there's a food for thought area somewhere in there.
It's a
But
both and situation,
yeah, right.
as many things are. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. I always like to ask this question, and it can be to do with anything. It could involve clothing, but it doesn't have to involve clothing. Can you share a recent story of gender joy?
Ooh. Yeah, probably. I mean, I feel like, what was I gonna say? There was a time, this I guess wasn't really recent, but this was like funny to me. And
Okay.
and then it was funny because it was on social media as well. I went to a show and I, this is like such a so I went to a show with my friend and my wife, and I was in a tank top, and I don't remember what the show was, and I was wearing a tank top, and we were just like in the line to like get in, right? And I was just like talking with my wife and whatever, and these huge bouncers, like these huge, very like men bouncers, are like at the door, and they're like, "Whoa, we can't let you have guns in here," something like that. They're like, stop, you can't bring guns into this venue. And I like really was I swear to God, I don't have it. Like, I was so scared. I was like, I promise that, like, I don't know who you're talking about. And then they, like, all started being like, those guns, man. They started pointing at my arms. And the whole time I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I, like, didn't know how to process it because it was so unexpected. Like, I was like, in my head, I was like, you guys have no idea how happy you just made me. Like, this, like, little, like, I just was so, it was such a moment that the whole night I was just like, that was so cool. Like,
I love
just to
that.
have such like healthy masculinity, like, and just to be, I don't know, seen in that way was just like really affirming for me. As like, not that muscles equals masculinity, but for like me personally, that for my own gender experience, like it's something that makes me feel tied to my body. So it was just such a cool moment, and like every once in a while I think about that, and I was like, that's just like, it was such a like breath of fresh air to have a healthy experience with like masculine people. And um they just are just like kidding around. They probably didn't think much about it, but they really made my night, and I felt very affirmed. And I was like, wow, that was really cool. But it was also funny that I truly thought they thought I had guns on me, and I was like, I promise, I really don't. Like, I don't even know where I'd put them. Like, but that was really fun. And then it was cool because there's, I forget what the handle is, but there's like a masculinity page on Instagram that like shares healthy masculinity stories, and they
Hmm.
like saw my TikTok about it and they shared it. And it was just like really cool to like see all these other like cis like men be like, yeah, bro, like this is awesome. Like, I don't know, it's nice to be reminded that like, I don't know, like not everyone's shitty. And I deal with a
Totally.
lot of evil people online. So to have the opposite for a little bit is really special and something like
Yeah,
I really carry with me.
that's awesome. I love that story so much. Zoom is
That's
being
fun.
annoying and telling us we only have 4 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we like have time for. So, can you like how can people follow you, and what's the best way for people to support you and what you're doing?
So my name is Miki Ratsula, and as far as I know, I'm quite literally the only one. So it's pretty easy to find me. Just look my name up, and I'm kind of everywhere. At the time, I'm very like behind the scenes stuff right now, but I did just put out my second album in October, which is has some of the songs we were talking about, and then I just put out a new song like 2 weeks ago. That's very like trans anthemy. Um, just like if you like follow me on Instagram, that's where I talk a lot about shows that come up. Also, I'm pretty active on TikTok, just like for fun. Just like follow me around, I guess. It'll be fun. Listen to my
Just follow
music,
you around, talk about your
share it with
guns.
people. Yeah, yeah.
Love
Just
it.
hang out.
Awesome.